Late at night, a strange object tears through the sky and crashes deep in the desert. A hunter witnesses the impact, his dog barking non-stop. The dog dashes toward the mysterious object to investigate, but quickly retreats. The hunter hears a terrifying roar and readies his gun, while the dog flees in panic. The next morning, Renee says farewell to her deceased pet lizard, cremating it on the grill. She then reminds her mother, Linda, that she needs a ride to the store to buy food for her pet snake. Linda admits she isn't fond of Renee keeping creepy animals. When Linda's boyfriend, Chase, joins them for breakfast, Renee ignores him, prompting Chase to scold her for not even saying good morning. As she leaves, Renee furiously scratches Chase's van in revenge. At school, she remains a loner, mocked by her classmates. During lunch, she sits with Gil, another outcast. He attempts small talk, but Renee only wants to eat. After class, Linda is late picking her up. When Linda asks about her day, Renee quickly changes the subject to her mother's tardiness and learns that she didn't go to work. Renee urges her to call the doctor for a better prescription, but Linda insists it was just a rough morning. Renee realizes that Linda and Chase fought and declares they should break up, pointing out that Chase never helps and spends his days drinking. Linda explains that Chase needs her, and being needed feels good. Back home, Renee tends to her eerie collection of pets, even singing to them while strumming her banjo. She realizes her snake is her closest companion, which makes her feel sad. During dinner, Chase brings up the scratches on his van, subtly blaming Renee, but Linda shuts him down and changes the subject. Then Chase complains about the foul smell from the microwave. Renee admits she heated a dead rat for her snake. Horrified at the unsanitary act, Chase panics, while Renee fires back with sass. In frustration, Chase throws chips at her, and Renee storms out, hearing Linda and Chase argue inside. Exhausted by the chaos, Renee hops on her ATV and speeds into the desert to cry alone. There, she discovers the hunter's overturned truck and a crater nearby. As she spins around, a terrifying monster appears, roaring loudly. She scrambles for cover while the creature lunges, but it's chained to the truck, limiting its chase. The creature thrashes wildly, straining against the chain, but it can't break free. Finally, exhausted, it collapses in defeat. Seizing the moment, Renee runs to her ATV but freezes when she notices the creature writhing in pain, trapped by the hunter's device. After a moment of hesitation, she approaches the truck and unlocks the chain. The beast lets out a piercing screech, sending Renee sprinting to the ATV in panic. Back home, she finds Linda consoling Chase and, irritated, decides to stay outside for a while. The next morning, helicopters fill the sky, making Renee anxious about the creature. She spends the morning carefully listing everything she'll need to help it. She borrows Gil's mother's video camera, repaying him by sharing her English homework. Returning home, she finds Linda and Chase waiting for a serious talk. Chase hands Renee his 24-hour sober coin, hoping he can stay on track tomorrow. Renee points out that he drank last night, so the 24-hour claim isn't true. Chase insists he's trying, and urges Renee to do her best for her mother's sake. After he leaves, Linda remarks that he's serious about improving, but Renee drops the coin in frustration, noting he hasn't even apologized. Later, she gathers her supplies and posts a sign on her door. She'll be busy with homework and must not be disturbed. That way, no one would notice she was gone. Quietly, she slips into the couple's bedroom and grabs Chase's keys. Inside his truck, she discovers a stash of tiny vodka bottles and a gun, the final item on her list. Renee then drives back to the desert. At first, she can't spot the creature, but through her binoculars, she finally sees it lying in the crater. She fires the gun into the air as a test, but the beast doesn't even flinch. Setting up the camera, she cautiously approaches to free it from the trap. The creature remains motionless, so Renee backs away, convinced it's dead. Suddenly, it lunges, knocking her to the ground and drenching her head in saliva. After sniffing her, it steps back, letting Renee get a proper look. She can't deny it's alien. She tries speaking to it and offers an apple, but the creature hurls it aside. As helicopters pass overhead, she frantically gestures, warning it that they're a threat. That evening, Renee returns home, realizing she left Chase's gun in the desert. She steps out of her room to find Chase drinking on the couch. He begs her not to tell Linda and asks about his keys, but Renee pretends she doesn't know. Heading back outside, she freezes. There, lurking in the bushes, is the alien. She commands it to leave, but it simply ignores her. Renee hops on her ATV and speeds into the desert, hoping the alien will follow her there. Suddenly, she loses sight of it, but out of nowhere it appears, unleashing golden waves from its mouth that engulf her face. For several seconds, Renee's body levitates, her eyes glowing intensely. When she comes to, it's already morning, and the alien lies asleep. Determined not to abandon it, Renee hugs the creature and secretly brings it home, hiding it in the cellar. Meanwhile, helicopters and a full investigation team scour the desert for the mysterious object that fell from the sky. Back at home, Renee pretends to go to school while calling her mother to confirm she's at work. After Chase leaves for the day, Renee brings the alien into the main house and attempts to feed it, but it refuses everything. She gives it a tour, introduces it to her pets, carefully stopping it from eating them, and decides to name it Croak. When Renee sings and strums her banjo, Croak's scales tremble. Sensing its fear, Renee comforts it and promises protection. Soon after, Linda returns early from work, worn down by her depression. Chase sends a photo of his 48-hour sober token, while Linda cries in the car, doubting her own efforts. In the living room, Renee watches TV with Croak, heart racing, when she suddenly hears her mother's footsteps opening the door. Renee sneaks out with her new companion, leaving Linda frustrated by the mess. She takes her medicine to calm down. As Renee and Croak rush to the cellar, Gil shows up at the house asking for his camera. Linda allows him into Renee's room, where he glances at a photo of her deceased father. He even considers sniffing her pillow, but stops, realizing how wrong that would be. After leaving some water for Croak, Renee returns inside and lies to her furious mother, claiming she skipped school because she's unwell. Heading to her room, she discovers Gil has already watched the footage of Croak. Renee insists it's just some desert animal she saw that ran away, suggesting the video is probably fake. When she tries to retrieve the camera, she finds Gil has stolen the tape. They struggle over it until Linda interrupts, announcing the door must stay open. Once she leaves, Gil warns that he wants the truth, or he'll take the tape to the police. With no other choice, Renee leads him down to the cellar. Croak lunges at Gil, but Renee quickly teaches it that he's a friend. When the alien sniffs him, Gil faints and wets his pants. Moments later, he wakes, and Renee must clamp her hand over his mouth to keep him from screaming. She then pets Croak while singing, making its scales tremble, which convinces Gil that the creature is harmless. Afterward, Gil returns the tape and agrees to keep their secret. Neither notices Agent Brown lurking nearby, spying and snapping photos. That evening, Renee hears sounds from the cellar and heads down, singing to Croak while strumming her banjo. She tells the alien stories about her childhood and how the instrument once belonged to her late father. She tries feeding Croak, but it refuses everything. The next day at lunch, Gil shares a theory inspired by Jurassic Park. Croak isn't a pet, it wants to hunt. That evening, they take it to Hellhole Canyon, where it finally feasts on pigs Gil brought. Afterward, it even brings a piece of pig back to Renee. She tries to hug Gil in gratitude, but Croak roars, preventing any contact. Once Croak is back in the cellar, Renee heads for her room, but a drunken Chase grabs her by the hair, hurls her onto the couch, and demands to know about his missing gun. Renee tries to lie, but Chase sees through her, leaving her no choice but to admit she lost the gun. He accuses her of not respecting him, claiming she doesn't fear him. He tells a story about how his father mistreated him as a child, insisting it was meant to teach respect. Terrified, Renee attempts to flee, but Chase grabs her. She bites his arm to break free. Enraged, Chase slams her against the wall and climbs on top, attempting to choke her. Linda hears the screams and rushes in to pull him off, while Croak pounds on the cellar wall in fury. The house shakes violently, and after several minutes, Croak stops. Linda assumes it was just an earthquake, insults Chase, and finally kicks him out, ending the relationship. When he hesitates, she hurls a beer bottle against the wall to force him to leave. Linda tries to check on Renee, but she's too furious that things escalated this far and pretends to retreat to her room. In reality, Renee heads to the cellar to calm Croak and remind him to behave, eventually falling asleep there. The next morning, Agent Jonathan approaches Renee, showing his badge and telling her he found the gun. It's registered to Chase, but the latest fingerprints are hers. When she claims she went to the desert to shoot cans, he says he'll be lenient for now and hands her his business card. If she doesn't call him with the information he wants, he'll return with a warrant and handcuffs. Meanwhile, Linda discovers the water isn't working and calls a plumber. Since he's a friend, she heads to work while he investigates. The man ventures into the cellar and spots Croak, panicking and swinging his tools at it. Croak bites him in response. Terrified, the plumber jumps into his van and speeds off, but fear and pain distract him, causing him to crash into another vehicle. When Renee gets home from school, Linda tries to have a serious talk, but Renee erupts, yelling and blaming her mother for everything. Linda breaks down, mentioning the water problem before retreating to her room. Renee quickly realizes what caused the pipes to break and rushes to the cellar, finding human blood on the floor. She checks Croak and notices the alien is bleeding too. She warns it not to harm anyone and finally accepts she can't keep Croak in the house anymore. Meanwhile, Gil is visited by Agent Brown. That evening, Renee takes her ATV to the desert, and Croak follows her, running so fast it overtakes the vehicle. They meet Gil, and Renee explains she's considering placing Croak in Chase's van to transport it to a reserve where it won't be discovered. This means Renee must stay with Croak until she's certain it's safe. Gil then admits that Agent Brown came to him, threatening to deport his immigrant relatives if he didn't share information, but he stayed silent. Later, Renee hides Croak inside a large box in the desert and returns home to start packing for the trip. She leaves a letter for Linda and frees all her pets. As she climbs into the van, a drunken, armed Chase appears and yanks her out. He forces Renee and Linda to sit in the living room while he vents about not being loved, eventually growing so furious that he smashes the table. Meanwhile, in the desert, agents discover the box, but it's empty. Croak is already racing back toward the house. Back home, Chase attacks Linda, who pleads with Renee to escape. As Renee tries to flee, Chase chases her, slamming her face against the van. He then points his gun at her, blaming her for why Linda doesn't love him. Suddenly, Croak lunges at Chase, slamming him against the van and killing him instantly. When Renee tries to intervene, Croak lets out a deafening roar and bolts. At that moment, Gil arrives and vomits at the sight of Chase's body. Convinced Croak is beyond saving, he admits he already spoke to the agents. Moments later, Jonathan emerges from the house and shoots out the ATV's tires. Soon, the agents surround the property, setting up their equipment. Renee is tied to a chair, and a net is placed over her hair to connect her to a computer, revealing that her bond with Croak is the strongest they've ever recorded. Jonathan breaks her finger to force a scream. Croak hears her and races back, only to fall into a trap that continuously shocks it until it collapses. Renee screams, begging for mercy, but Jonathan knocks her out. Later, Croak is transported on a specialized platform to a government facility, restrained and sedated. Renee is held in an empty room, and when Jonathan wakes her, she spits in his face. She insists Croak is her friend, but Jonathan warns it's dangerous. He explains that Renee isn't the first to encounter an alien, only the first to survive. The government believes Croak is a creature created by a species far more intelligent than humans, sent to Earth for reconnaissance, implying the possibility of a future invasion. Since Renee formed a bond with Croak, Jonathan demands she let scientists study her to discover the best way to kill the aliens. If she refuses, he threatens to commit Linda to a mental institution and forcibly extract the information from Renee, which would harm her. Linda is allowed to visit and reveals she's read Renee's letter, apologizing for everything. After Linda leaves, Renee screams, mimicking what Jonathan did to her hand to get Croak's attention. Hearing her, Jonathan storms in and clamps his hand over her mouth, but Renee bites him. Croak roars, breaking free from the platform, and begins attacking the guards who try to stop it. Alarms blare throughout the building as the lights flicker wildly. Croak smashes through the lab, bringing down anyone in its path. Linda, worried for Renee, finds the door locked and is forced to escape through the vents. In the corridor, she is horrified by the bodies strewn across the floor. Jonathan and Brown raise their weapons, aiming at the door. Suddenly, Croak crashes through the wall, sending both men flying unconscious. It prepares to strike again, but Renee calms it with gentle pets. Using Jonathan's keys, she frees herself, and the pair escape. Outside, Renee and Croak rush to a car, ready to get away. Jonathan emerges and opens fire, but fortunately, Gil has been waiting nearby and shouts a warning just in time. Renee and Croak dive behind a car for cover, while Jonathan continues firing, unconcerned about hitting Renee. Determined to protect her, Croak leaps from hiding, taking multiple bullets from Jonathan. Despite the wounds, Croak tackles Jonathan and kills him. Renee rushes to her friend's side, heartbroken when she realizes Croak is mortally wounded. Linda and Gil do their best to comfort her, holding her as she cries. Later, the three of them have a quiet picnic, trying to find a moment of peace. Meanwhile, in a government lab, scientists examine Croak's body. But suddenly, it stirs alive once more, leaving everyone in shock.